You're listening to the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. It's fast, fun, free, daily deep dive Bible, and right now we're working on the book of Nehemiah. If you're new, welcome. You can jump in right here, or you can always go back and start at the beginning of any season. The whole podcast is available in an easy-to-use format at thetmbh.com.
I would like to brag about one of my friends. I have a ton of great friends. I think every single one of my friends is super cool and great. There's just one I'm going to talk about today. His name is Destin Sandlin, and he does stuff on the internet. He's been doing stuff on the internet for a long time. He makes educational videos about science and technology, and really just videos about his curiosity about the world. He's super smart and super empathetic. He's got a really good sense of what it would be like to listen to him talk, to watch his videos. I think he's a great communicator, and he's a super ultra high integrity guy. And like I said, I was going to brag on him a little bit. I'm almost done, I promise. But when I was getting to know him and we were becoming friends, I remember hearing him say this phrase several times: be a thinker and a doer. It was kind of like a professional slogan kind of thing for the stuff he was putting on the internet. And I like it. And I told him that a couple times. I really like that. I think I see what you're doing there and I appreciate it. And so somewhere along the line, he sent me this card. He must have printed off a bunch of them and just thought I might want one. And it's very simple. It's about the size of a postcard, but thicker. You can hear it there. It's in my hand. And it's a piece of cardstock. It looks like some kind of recycled material. And there's just one big yellow rectangle on it. And then within that rectangle, big, bold, black letters that say, be a thinker and doer. That phrase that he always says that I like so much. And I just think it's wonderful. And so I've kept it around. Yeah, I don't need like some kind of memorabilia from my friend or anything, but I really like this one. I like how simple it is. I like the way it's printed. I like what it means. I like that his friend, a printer from Detroit, is the guy who made it. And I like the way it positively says, like, being a thinker is important and everybody thinks about things, but then take action as well. I think it's really cool. I also like the way there's a little bit of a discreet pushback. Like almost as if to say, you wouldn't want to be the kind of person who thinks and has lots of commentary about people who do things, but then not do things yourself. You got to do things. You got to take action. You got to try. You got to get in the arena. That's his vibe, and I like it, and I like this card. Likewise, I think Nehemiah is that kind of guy, and I think that's why I like Nehemiah. Maybe you have noticed that other than Jesus of Nazareth, in all the seasons we've done, Nehemiah is the guy that I dote on the most. I'm a fan, unapologetically. I really like how he's coming off here. I like the way he's handling his situation. I like the way he talks to people. I like the way he makes other people's problems his problem and works up an action plan and then does stuff. Nehemiah is a thinker and a doer. And you'll see as we get further into the book, there are some points where maybe he doesn't know exactly what to do, but he still does things and is even pretty self-aware about the fact that maybe he didn't know exactly what to do in every situation. And I suppose lots of people as well are good at being a thinker and a doer when everybody's cheering them on and celebrating. This is great. You're the coolest thing ever. But so far in the first two chapters, Nehemiah's had to overcome some pretty serious hurdles, not the least of which is this gentleman's trouble that we're getting from Sanballat, the Horamite, and his buddy Tobiah, the Ammonite. We've spent the last couple of days looking between the lines at who these guys might be and where they're from. It'll be spelled out more overtly a little bit further ahead in the text, but it's not as much fun and joy and discovery as if we do it the way we did it. But the guy's a Samaritan, and he's an enemy of the Jewish people, and he has a completely separate narrative, completely separate design for things. He's not happy that the Jewish people are thriving, and we know from other texts inside and outside the Bible that this was a family affair. Tobiah, the Ammonite, well, we know there's bad history with the Ammonites as well, another neighboring people group. So people who know Nehemiah and know Nehemiah's family, they don't like him. They're accusing him of things in front of everybody, and yet Nehemiah's like, okay, be a thinker and a doer. Cool. As we turn the page to chapter 3, Nehemiah has just received withering criticism. He's been accused of something that is treasonous, for which the penalty is death. He's been accused of sedition. He's been accused of rebelling against the great King of Kings, like his best friend, Artaxerxes. He's cupbearer. I mean, he would drink poison for this guy. He loves Artaxerxes. not rebellion? What are you talking about? But rather than coming out and getting into a big protracted fight with Sanballat and with Tobiah and this other guy who shows up as well, Geshem the Arab, instead, Nehemiah ends chapter 2 simply saying, "The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding, but as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem or any claim or historic right to it." That's it. He says exactly how the things are. These guys, these accusers, use one of the oldest tricks in the book, which is accusation, to get people off balance and upset, get them to act out of character, and then point and be like, see, that's not a good person. That's not a reliable person. But I think Nehemiah kind of is a good person to whatever extent that's possible. And so rather than going point by point and engaging with everything, he's like, yeah, this is the will of God, and he will give us success, and this really isn't your project, so we're going to get to work. And then that's what happens. You see, Nehemiah has already put in the thought. He thought for months, maybe 4 months. I thought I calculated earlier on in our discussion. After he gets the bad news about the state of Jerusalem, he thinks for a long time, prays, and then he goes and he talks to the king about stuff. Then he has a clear plan already in place for what to do. I mean, did you catch how ready he was in chapter 2? Why are you sad there, Nehemiah? Nehemiah's like, oh, why shouldn't I be? My city's in ruins. The one where my fathers are buried, the gates are destroyed by fire. It's pretty bad. And then the king's like, all right, well, what do you want there? And Nehemiah isn't like, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about what would happen if you say yes. I'm not really a thinker. I haven't thought it through. No. Nehemiah's like, okay, here's exactly what I want. If it pleases the king and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my fathers are buried so I can rebuild it. Oh, dang, you've been thinking about this, haven't you, Nehemiah? Yeah, I totally have, your grace. Cool, well, that's why I respect you. A lot of paraphrase here is mine. That's why I respect you, because you think about stuff. You got ideas. You know what needs to happen. So the king then is like, all right, great. How long's your journey going to take? I mean, it's just boom, boom, boom. And at every turn, Nehemiah has thought it through so that he can take action. Well, inevitably, whenever you do something, somebody's going to come along and gripe about it. And that's exactly what happens. Immediately, people start complaining. They are powerful people who start complaining. And Nehemiah just does that thing where you make a knife edge, a blade with your hand, and you put it at about nose level and point forward. And you're like, straight ahead. I will not be distracted by your dumb chatter and stupid stuff. That is sideways energy. That is how we get tangled up and delayed, and this project stretches out for generations. No, this project isn't that hard if somebody just powers through the resistance and the complaining and the criticism and just builds the dang walls. Someone needs to take leadership, make it their problem, procure the resources, and go build the walls. The problem is that our walls are currently knocked down. The solution would be to put the walls up and do it with quality and efficiency. The problem, part 2, is that our gates are burned. The solution would be to get wood that isn't burned and make new gates out of them and then hang them up and make sure they lock and swing properly. That'll pretty much do it. So let's go fix the thing. Thinker and a doer. So what does he do after he's accused of sedition? He just says, God's got this. This is the plan. You guys don't have a part in it. And there's almost, if you look real close, you got to squint between Nehemiah chapter 2 that I just was summarizing and Nehemiah chapter 3. There's almost this little note in the middle that says, anyways, because it just pivots into action. Here's what you get after all that controversy. Very next verse, Nehemiah 3:1. Eliashib, the high priest, and his fellow priests went to work to rebuild the sheep gate. They dedicated it and set its doors in place, building as far as the Tower of the 100, which they dedicated, and as far as the Tower of Hananel. The men of Jericho built the adjoining section, and Zakur, son of Emri, built next to them. Now you just picture the soundscape of what just happened. There's all of this grumpy, your attention, please. I'm the governor of Samaria, and I have some very real concerns. We're going to have some parliamentary procedure here. I'm going to need to see paperwork. We're going to need to talk about this. There's going to need to be meetings, extensive meetings, to make sure that this isn't some sort of sedition. I would hate to see the king dishonored or disobeyed. And you can picture this whole super frumpy speech, and then Nehemiah's like, okay, well, we're just going to go ahead and build this then. And then you just picture the soundscape switching to saws and hammers and the muttering of people working or cheerily whistling and singing as they chip away at everything. The first 2 verses of Nehemiah chapter 3 give you this list of all these people from all these different places who dropped whatever they were doing. Like, yeah, okay, let's build things. And then they built this and these other people built this. The walls are going up. It's amazing. Be a thinker and a doer. Nehemiah looked at a problem, was like, what is the problem? The walls are down and the gates are burned. What is the solution? We need building materials that allow you to put walls up and fix the gates, and then we just are going to need to build those. So he gets the building materials, and then he immediately starts building those. He's been there 3 days, dude, and he's fixing something that is a generational problem by simply ignoring whining. Look, you know the deal here. I don't like to do the moral of the story thing, like I am somehow your spiritual guru or guide, or like I know how all the things ought to be. I don't know how the things ought to be. I do stupid stuff. But sometimes from a distance, by looking at people who don't do stupid stuff all the time, I can kind of get a sense of things that work versus things that don't work. And this is one of these. I've had a front row seat to a whole lot of people who are thinkers and doers, and I've seen the effectiveness that happens when they power through stupid, petty, selfish, insecure objections and chatter and complaining and identify the problem and then do the thing to fix the problem. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite things in the world. It is one of the attributes I most admire in my dear friend Destin, and it is an attribute that I am in love with as I watch it play out here in the book of Nehemiah with the title character of this book. Nehemiah is just awesome, and I so respect the way he blew past the criticism and is doing things and fixing the problem. He's full of courage. He's got clarity of purpose. He's the man in the arena. I absolutely love it. More of the build montage next time around. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.